Right, let's talk about Qatar. Yes, Qatar. That small peninsula sticking out into the Persian Gulf that looks a bit like a thumb trying to hitch a ride away from Saudi Arabia. For a country roughly the size of Connecticut, it punches so far above its weight. Basically the flyweight boxer who keeps knocking out heavyweights. Everyone is starting to ask, wait, what's in this guy's water bottle? 1 minute, they're hosting the World Cup. Stadiums with air conditioning powerful enough to create its own weather system. The next, they are the one country everyone has on speed dial. US State Department, Hamas, Taliban. It's bewildering. So why are we talking about this now, on September 12th, 2025? Because Qatar has become absolutely central to nearly every major crisis unfolding in the Middle East. When American hostages need to be freed, who gets the call? Qatar. When a fragile ceasefire needs to be negotiated in Gaza, who is sitting at the table, passing notes between parties who won't even look at each other? When the world needs a massive amount of liquefied natural gas to keep the lights on, whose ships are sailing over the horizon? Qatar. This tiny nation has managed to make itself indispensable, which is both a brilliant strategic move and an incredibly stressful position to be in. This essay is going to be a simple, straightforward look at how we got here. Before the gleaming skyscrapers, the sovereign wealth fund that could probably buy the moon, and the international news network, Qatar was, to put it mildly, a much quieter place. For centuries, its economy was basically two things: pearls fish. Life was tough. Divers would spend their days plunging into the warm Gulf waters, searching for oysters, while the rest of the community depended on the sea's bounty. It was a simple, arduous existence, dictated by the tides and the seasons. The families that ruled the peninsula, including the Al Thani family who are still in charge today, were local leaders navigating tribal politics and the constant threat of more powerful neighbors. Then, the British Empire showed up. Seeing the strategic value of the Persian Gulf, Britain established a series of agreements with local sheikhs. In 1916, Qatar officially became a British protectorate. This wasn't a colony, it was more like a security deal. Qatar agreed to let Britain handle its foreign policy and defense, and in return, the British Navy would protect it from external threats, like, say, the Ottomans or ambitious rival tribes. Ensuring the Al Thani family's rule and giving the small sheikhdom a degree of stability it had never known before. Just as Qatar became independent, it stumbled upon a discovery that would dwarf its oil reserves. Geologists confirmed a colossal natural gas field off its northern coast. They called it the North Field. It's the single largest non-associated natural gas field in the world. In the 1970s, there was a problem. Gas was hard and costly to transport. You couldn't load it into tankers like oil. The technology to monetize it was still new. Qatar's leaders made a bold gamble: invest tens of billions in LNG. LNG means cooling gas to minus 162 degrees Celsius, minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, it becomes liquid and shrinks to 1/600th of its volume. That liquid is pumped into massive specialized ships. Gas-field liquefaction plant, large LNG carrier ship. It was a huge risk. The bet paid off spectacularly. In the 1990s and the 2000s, global demand for LNG exploded. Qatar, having invested early, became the world's largest exporter. The money transformed the country. Modern cities, world-class infrastructure, a global airline, Al Jazeera media network. The wealth gave Qatar soft power, culture, diplomacy, economics. As Qatar's wealth grew, so did its need for security. Tiny, rich country in a volatile region, like a small person carrying a giant gold bar through a rough neighborhood. You need a very big bodyguard. In the early 1990s, Qatar found that bodyguard in the United States. The relationship was cemented during the 1991 Gulf War. Qatar allowed foreign forces onto its territory as a staging ground. American troops were among them. That helped liberate Kuwait from Saddam Hussein's invasion. This marked the start of a deep strategic defense partnership, the bedrock of the US-Qatar relationship. After 9/11, the partnership moved to a new level. The US needed a large, stable base in the Middle East to run operations in Afghanistan and later Iraq. Saudi Arabia was becoming politically sensitive for US forces. Qatar saw an opportunity. It offered the US expanded access at Al Udeid Air Base, southwest of Doha. Qatar funded much of the base expansion, over $1 billion for modern facilities. A clear signal of commitment. Al Udeid quickly became the most important US military installation in the Middle East. It serves as the forward headquarters of US Central Command. CENTCOM oversees operations across a vast region, from Egypt to Afghanistan. The base houses over 10,000 American military personnel. It hosts bomber jets. It hosts refueling tankers. It hosts sophisticated surveillance aircraft. With its security guaranteed by the US and its coffers full of gas money, Qatar began to carve out a unique and often controversial niche for itself: the role of the international mediator. Its leaders realized that their small size and immense wealth gave them an advantage. They weren't a regional superpower with their own imperial ambitions, so they could be seen as a more neutral broker. They deliberately cultivated relationships with a wide array of actors, including many that the West officially shuns. Be the country that can talk to everyone, especially the people no one else can or will talk to. This made them incredibly useful. One prominent example: Qatar hosting talks with the Taliban. For years, Doha provided a political office for the group, allowing US officials to engage in direct, long-term negotiations. Talks were held in luxurious Doha hotels and led to the 2020 US-Taliban agreement, paving the way for the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. The withdrawal's outcome was chaotic and criticized, but Qatar's role as facilitator was undeniable. It was the only venue where such a difficult dialogue could take place over a sustained period. This role as a go-between has extended to numerous other conflicts and hostage situations. Qatar has successfully negotiated the release of prisoners and hostages in Syria, Lebanon, across Africa. It's a form of, well, checkbook diplomacy, but one that has proven effective in resolving disputes where traditional diplomacy has failed. In a world full of intractable conflicts, being the one party that can talk to both sides is a source of immense power and influence. The election of Donald Trump in 2016 marked the beginning of a turbulent and deeply uncertain period for US-Qatar relations. The Trump administration's approach to foreign policy was often personal, transactional, and unpredictable, sending confusing and contradictory signals to allies across the globe. In June 2017, this volatility exploded into a full-blown crisis when Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Egypt abruptly severed diplomatic ties with Qatar and imposed a complete land-sea air. They accused Qatar of supporting terrorism and being too close to Iran, charges Qatar vehemently denied. This was an existential threat to the small nation. Initially, President Trump appeared to publicly endorse the blockade. In a series of tweets, he seemed to take credit for the move, saying his trip to Saudi Arabia was already paying off, and that leaders there had pointed to Qatar as the funder of radical ideology. This was a stunning and terrifying moment for Qatari leaders. Their most important ally, the guarantor of their security, seemed to be siding with their opponents. However, behind the scenes, other parts of the US government were scrambling to contain the crisis. The Pentagon, led by then-Secretary of Defense James Mattis, and the State Department, led by then-Secretary Rex Tillerson, knew that the blockade threatened to destabilize the region and disrupt operations at the critical Al Udeid airbase. This created a bizarre split-screen effect. The president was tweeting support for the blockade, while his own cabinet was working to undermine it and support Qatar. Ultimately, the institutional parts of the US government won out. The strategic importance of Al Udeid was too great to ignore. No issue highlights Qatar's delicate balancing act more than its role in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, particularly concerning Gaza. Qatar's aid flow to Gaza, through Israel, to the people of Gaza. Qatar has been the largest single financial donor to the Gaza Strip, providing hundreds of millions in aid, fuel for the territory's power plant support for poor families, civil servant salaries. This aid was delivered with the full knowledge and coordination of Israel. Israel saw the money as a necessary evil to prevent humanitarian collapse and to avoid greater instability on its border. A pragmatic, uneasy arrangement kept a lid on a simmering crisis for years. Qatar maintained a direct, open relationship with Hamas. Qatar hosted Hamas's political leadership in Doha for over a decade. That move drew intense criticism from Israel and some in Washington. Qatar argues someone needs a line of communication to the group. De-escalation prisoner swaps a path toward political resolution. The October 7, 2023 Hamas attack and the Gaza war made the tightrope far more perilous. Qatar was thrust into the center of intense diplomacy. The US and Israel could not talk directly to Hamas. Qatar, along with Egypt, became the essential channel for negotiations. Qatar is caught in the middle, mediating while managing ties with Israel, the US, and the Arab world. its role as a mediator is more vital and vulnerable than ever. From the perspective of Washington, D.C., the relationship with Qatar is the definition of its complicated. On one hand, Qatar is an indispensable security partner. The importance of Al Udeid Air Base cannot be overstated. It is the command and control center for US military power in one of the world's most vital regions. The Pentagon, and anyone involved in national security, sees the base as a non-negotiable asset. That gives Qatar tremendous leverage and ensures the US will seek to maintain a stable relationship with Doha. On the other hand, there are significant and persistent concerns within Washington about Qatar's foreign policy choices. Its open-door policy to groups like Hamas and past associations with Islamist movements have long been a source of friction. Some policymakers and intelligence officials worry Qatar is trying to have it both ways, acting as a US ally while also providing a platform for groups that are hostile to US interests. The Al Jazeera media network is funded by the Qatari state and is a frequent point of contention. Critics accuse it of broadcasting anti-American or anti-Israel sentiment. Supporters praise it for giving voice to alternative perspectives in the region. These two competing views, as a vital partner and a problematic actor, exist simultaneously within the US government. Different agencies often have different priorities. Department of Defense, State Department, Treasury Department, members of Congress. This complexity means US policy toward Qatar can often seem inconsistent. This dual-track approach is likely to continue, as both the strategic benefits and the political controversies surrounding Qatar are deeply entrenched. So, after this whirlwind tour, history, gas fields, air bases, and high-stakes diplomacy, what's the takeaway? It's this. Qatar, the tiny Gulf state with an outsized footprint, has made itself matter. It has woven itself into the fabric of global energy security, US military strategy, and international conflict resolution. This journey from a poor pearl diving community to a global power broker is a masterclass in strategic statecraft. By leveraging its one huge asset, natural gas, it bought itself security through a US military alliance and influence through a unique brand of talk-to-everyone diplomacy. This has made it both invaluable and controversial. The relationship with the United States is the central pillar, a partnership built on a foundation of mutual need. The US needs Al Udeid Air Base to project power in the Middle East, and it needs a reliable partner in the turbulent world of energy politics. Qatar, in turn, needs the American security umbrella to ensure its very survival. This symbiotic relationship has endured political storms, including the dramatic and confusing signals of the Trump years and the intense pressures of the ongoing Gaza crisis. It has proven resilient because it is based on hard, strategic interests that transcend the political rhetoric of any given moment. You know, understanding this small but mighty nation is no longer optional. It is absolutely essential.